All right, so today we're diving into something pretty major, a U.S. policy decision that sent shockwaves all the way to Cairo.
Yeah, it's really fascinating how a seemingly simple thing like a funding pause
Mm.
can have such a huge ripple effect. And in this case, it's hitting Egyptian students hard.
Yeah, we're talking about President Trump's 90-day pause on foreign aid, and specifically how it's impacting over 1,000 Egyptian students.
1,077 to be exact. And they're spread across 10 universities.
And these aren't just any students either. These are folks who are receiving U.S.-side scholarships, and that means they're studying in fields that are crucial to Egypt's development.
Exactly. We're talking water resources, energy, agriculture, nursing, essential stuff.
Yeah, stuff that builds a society, right? So you can see why this funding pause is causing so much anxiety. I mean, 200 students at the American University in Cairo alone are affected.
The AUC, yeah, a very prestigious institution, and it's not just undergrads.
Right. It's professionals going for their master's degrees, people in short-term training programs.
Think about it. Folks in the bridge year program, getting ready for their first year, all set to go.
And then suddenly, bam, the rug's pulled out from under them.
Exactly. And then you have those who are about to start in spring 2025. Imagine their disappointment.
I read a message from AUC's president, Ahmad Dalal, where he talked about the disappointment and uncertainty the students are facing.
It's heartbreaking, but there's also a silver lining here. You see how everyone's responding? It's incredible.
Yeah, it's like everyone went into problem-solving mode immediately. Like the Egyptian Higher Education Ministry, they wasted no time.
Not at all. They said they'd cover tuition fees for all the affected students, at least until the end of the second semester.
That's huge. It's like they said, we won't let you down.
Exactly. And then you have universities like Ain Shams. They're not just covering tuition.
They're offering facilities, support services, the whole 9 yards.
And AUC itself is really stepping up.
Oh, absolutely. They're covering tuition, housing, living expenses for their 200 affected students.
They're doing what they can. They've admitted they can't take on new students right now with the financial strain.
It's understandable, but still, they're going above and beyond for the students they already have.
For sure. Even covering the salaries of 113 staff members whose jobs were tied to those scholarships.
Wow. 3 months of salary while they look for new roles? That's commitment.
It shows they really care about their community. But you know what else is amazing? The students themselves, they're not just sitting around waiting.
Oh no, they're fighting back.
Exactly. They've got this hashtag uncertain future for all UC students.
Raising awareness. And the AUC Student Union Representation Committee, they're not messing around.
They're actively looking for funding. They even started a crowdfunding campaign.
So inspiring to see that kind of energy and resilience. But to really get the full picture, we need to zoom out a bit.
We need to understand the bigger context, and thankfully, we have Dr. Lee Rensimer to help us do that.
He's the Deputy Director of the Center for Global Higher Education.
A real expert in this field.
And you know what he pointed out? Egypt actually receives almost half of all U.S. higher education aid to Africa.
48% to be precise.
So this pause isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's a major disruption to the entire system.
And Dr. Rensimer says it goes beyond just scholarships.
Right, he's worried about the impact on scientific research collaborations, those centers of excellence that rely on U.S. funding.
We could be looking at a brain drain, a slowdown in progress in vital areas.
And when you consider that the U.S. is the fourth largest bilateral donor to higher education globally,
And that Egypt is the fourth largest recipient of U.S. aid overall.
you realize this is a big deal. This isn't just some small partnership.
This is a major player in the world of foreign aid, and the impact is far-reaching. It goes beyond higher education.
It really does. This pause is hitting other USAID-funded programs, too. Civil society organizations, social programs.
Even basic education programs are feeling the pinch.
The USA Egyptian Pioneers Program, which gives scholarships to professionals in key government institutions.
That's been completely suspended.
It's like a chain reaction. One thing leads to another, and the consequences just keep spreading.
It really highlights how interconnected everything is and how something happening in Washington can have a direct impact on the lives of people thousands of miles away.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, what does this all mean for the future of U.S. foreign aid? What does it mean for international development?
Big questions, ones we need to unpack carefully.
And we'll do just that right after this break.
It really makes you wonder what this means for the long haul. Not just for Egypt, but for the whole idea of U.S. foreign aid.
Yeah, it's a big question. Some folks are saying this is a sign of something bigger, like a shift in U.S. foreign policy.
So it's not just a one-off thing.
No, not really. There's this whole debate about how effective foreign aid actually is, and some powerful people are saying the U.S. should step back from global involvement.
So like a trend towards less involvement. What would that mean for countries like Egypt who rely on that aid, especially for education? Well, it could have some serious consequences if this 90-day pause turns into something more permanent. Fewer educational opportunities, a widening gap between the haves and the have-nots, maybe even slower economic progress.
It doesn't sound good. And what about soft power? Doesn't the U.S. benefit from funding education in other countries?
Oh, absolutely. It builds goodwill, strengthens relationships.
So, like diplomacy through education.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when the U.S. cuts back on that, it sends a message. And that message can be interpreted in a lot of different ways.
But maybe they don't care anymore.
Right. Some might see it as disengagement, a lack of commitment to global partnerships.
So it's not just about the money, but the message it sends. Could it actually hurt the U.S.'s reputation as a global leader?
It's definitely a concern, and it might make it harder for the U.S. to achieve its foreign policy goals in the long run.
And what about the impact on the U.S. itself?
Well, when we support education abroad, we're not just helping others, we're creating opportunities for American students and researchers too.
So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, these partnerships lead to cross-cultural exchange, knowledge sharing, and often some really groundbreaking innovation.
So cutting back on foreign aid could backfire on the U.S.
That's what a lot of people are saying. They think it's short-sighted
Mhm.
and doesn't take into account how interconnected the world is. But there is another side to this coin.
Really? What's that?
Well, some argue that this funding pause, while disruptive, could be an opportunity for a reset.
A reset? Like, what do you mean?
Well, they're saying the U.S. foreign aid system has become bloated and inefficient.
Too much bureaucracy.
Maybe too much money going to corrupt governments or being wasted on poorly designed programs.
I see. So this pause is a chance to step back and reassess.
Exactly. Figure out what's working, what's not, and maybe come up with a better approach.
So be more strategic with the aid?
Right. Focus on quality over quantity. Make sure every dollar spent is actually making a difference.
That makes sense. And what about partnering with local communities and organizations?
That's a big part of it, too. They argue that relying too heavily on one donor like the U.S. can create dependencies and hinder long-term growth.
It's like that saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime.
Yeah, exactly. And this pause could also create an opening for other actors to step up.
Like we're seeing in Egypt with the universities and the government supporting students.
Right? It's a test of resilience with different stakeholders coming together to find solutions.
Maybe this will lead to a more diversified approach to funding international development.
It's possible, of course. A lot depends on what happens in the next few months and how the U.S. government decides to move forward.
So we're in wait-and-see mode.
Yeah. But one thing's for sure, this is a pivotal moment for U.S. foreign aid and for the future of global educational partnerships.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the immediate shock of this funding pause to the wider implications for global aid and development. But I keep thinking about the human element.
It's easy to get lost in the policy discussions. But at the heart of this are real people whose lives have been turned upside down.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the immediate shock of this funding pause to the wider implications for global aid and development. But I keep thinking about the human element.
It's easy to get lost in the policy discussions. But at the heart of this are real people whose lives have been turned upside down.
Yeah, those 1,077 Egyptian students, the ones whose scholarships are now in limbo, what are their stories? What are they going through right now?
We're getting glimpses through that hashtag uncertain future for OC students. A lot of anxiety, understandably, about their ability to continue their education, the impact on their future careers, even just making ends meet.
It's hard enough being a student, juggling coursework, exams, and everything else life throws at you, but to have this added burden, this fear that your dreams might be put on hold.
And it's especially tough for those from disadvantaged backgrounds, the ones who saw these scholarships as a way to break the cycle of poverty.
Education for them is more than just a degree. It's a lifeline, a chance to create a better future.
Exactly, and that's why the responses we've seen from the universities and the Egyptian government, even fellow students, are so powerful.
It shows that even in times of crisis, people step up to help each other.
It's a testament to community and resilience. But the big question is what happens next? What does the future hold for these students?
Well, the 90-day pause is ticking away, but no one knows for sure what will happen after that. Will the funding be restored? Will it be cut even further?
Or will we see a complete overhaul of how the U.S. approaches foreign aid? It's a waiting game.
But while we wait, we can't let this issue fade into the background. We need to keep the pressure on policymakers, make sure they understand the real-world consequences of their decisions.
Exactly. The voices of those most affected, the students, the educators, the communities, need to be heard.
We have to hold our leaders accountable for ensuring that foreign aid, when it is given, is used effectively, ethically, and with a genuine commitment to making a positive impact.
Well said. As we wrap up this deep dive, I'm struck by the complexity of this situation. There are no easy answers, no quick fixes.
We've explored the potential long-term consequences, both positive and negative, and we've seen glimmers of hope amidst the uncertainty, but ultimately the future of U.S. foreign aid, the future of these educational partnerships, the futures of those 1,077 students, they're all hanging in the balance.
It's a reminder that even in a globalized world, individual decisions can have a profound impact on people's lives.
So as we sign off today, we leave you with this question. What role will you play in ensuring that education remains a priority both here at home and around the world? How will you use your voice, your actions, your influence to advocate for a more just and equitable future for everyone?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you some food for thought and inspired you to get involved in this critical issue.
Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.